Thank you for downloading the Hong Kong Writers Circle podcast. For more information, please visit our website hkwriterscircle.com. Alfred Hitchcock made over 50 films in the course of his career and has been called a master director and a genius. While he is best known for suspense films and psychological thrillers, his pioneering work touches all aspects of filmmaking and, as I hope to demonstrate, many aspects of storytelling. Hitchcock wrote that film's nearest parallel is the short story, which is, as a rule, concerned to sustain one idea and ends when the action has reached the highest point of the dramatic curve. A novel may be read at intervals and with interruptions. A play has breaks between the acts. But the short story is rarely put down, and in this it resembles the film, which makes a unique demand for uninterrupted attention upon its audience. This unique demand explains the need for a steady development of a plot and the creation of gripping situations arising out of the plot." End quote. Hitchcock is also known for his almost unprecedented close collaboration with his screenwriters, saying that "the most enjoyable part of making a picture is in that little office with the writer when we are discussing the storylines and what we're going to put on the screen. The big difference is that I do not let the writer go off on his own and just write a script that I will interpret. I stay involved with him and get him involved in the direction of the picture." End quote. With all this in mind, I've assembled a list of 10 things I have learnt about writing from Hitchcock's films. Number 1. Reactions. One of Hitchcock's greatest films is Rear Window, in which James Stewart is convalescing with a broken leg in his apartment and has nothing to do but look out of the window at his neighbours. It is a complex and engaging film, but it is made with a very simple technique, as filmmaker and critic Peter Bogdanovich explains.
Rear Window is sort of Hitchcock's testament film. I think it's a French term, meaning that in Rear Window, perhaps you see the best example of what Hitchcock's cinema at its best stood for, which was essentially the use of the subjective point of view. You have a shot of Jimmy Stewart, you show what he's looking at, you see his reaction. Basically, the entire movie is based on that. He looks, you see what he sees, he reacts. That is kind of the heart of Hitchcock's filmmaking, and he has an incredible ability to put you in the point of view of the leading character, or whatever character. And he does it with considerable dexterity. And it's particularly noticeable, obviously, in Rear Window, where the entire picture plays in one apartment.
It is easy to forget, when we are writing a dramatic scene or describing a location, that we need to provide characters' reactions to what they see and the people they meet. Just as plot is developed through action, character is developed through reaction. For Hitchcock, this relates to the storytelling potential of editing, as he explains.
Now, the third way is what one might call pure cinematics, the assembly of film, and how it can be changed to create a different idea. Now, we have a close-up. Let me show what he sees. Let's assume he saw a woman holding a baby in her arms. Now we cut back to his reaction to what he sees, and he smiles. Now what is he as a character? He's a kindly man. He's sympathetic. Now, let's take the middle piece of film away, the woman with the child, but leave his 2 pieces of film as they were. Now we'll put in a piece of film of a girl in a bikini. He looks, girl in a bikini, he smiles. What is he now? The dirty old man. He's no longer the benign gentleman who loves babies. That's the difference. That's what film can do for you.
Writing is, of course, a different process from editing film, but I think the general point is applicable, that a juxtaposition of a character and a situation is open to interpretation, or even misinterpretation, by the reader, unless we the writers guide them. It's important to remember to include that third reaction shot, so that the character and the development is clear to the reader. I have frequently written in the margin of stories, how does the character feel about this? Or even, how am I supposed to feel about this? Because this information is assumed by the writer, but not given. Number 2. Endings. Hitchcock was keen to draw a distinction between mystery and suspense. He explains the difference here.
You see many films, there's a great confusion, especially in my particular genre of work. There's a great confusion between the words mystery and suspense. And the two things are absolutely miles apart. You see, mystery is an intellectual process, like in a whodunit. But suspense is essentially an emotional process. Therefore, you can only get the suspense element going by giving the audience information. And I dare say you've seen many films which have mysterious goings-on. You don't know what's going, why the man is doing this, why that, and you're about a third of the way through the film before you realize what it's all about. And to me, that's completely wasted footage, because there's no emotion to it.
Twist endings are pretty difficult to do, and yet they are frequently used by short story writers. I suppose this is because we want our stories to go out with a bang just as much as we want to start with one too. But it's unwise to think that a reader will persevere with a dull story just because there's an amazing twist at the end. How would they know anyway? A frequent criticism I give of story endings is that the twist or climax was not earned, or that all the interest of the story was packed into the final page. Hitchcock ties this issue to the emotional core of scenes.
4 people are sitting around a table, talking about baseball, whatever you like. 5 minutes of it, very dull. Suddenly, a bomb goes off, blows the people to smithereens. What do the audience have? 10 seconds of shock. Now take the same scene and tell the audience there is a bomb under that table and will go off in 5 minutes. Well, the whole emotion of the audience is totally different, because you've given them that information, that in 5 minutes' time, that bomb will go off. Now the conversation about baseball becomes very vital, because they're saying to you, don't be ridiculous, stop talking about baseball, there's a bomb under there. You've got the audience working. Now the only difference is, although I've been guilty of, in the picture Sabotage, of making this error, but I've never made it since, the bomb must never go off. Because if you do, you work that audience into a state, and then they'll get angry because you haven't provided them with any relief. And that's almost a must. So a foot touches the bomb, somebody looks down and says, my God, a bomb. Out of the window, then it goes off, just in time.
It is worth remembering that, even when a story has a sting in the tail, it needs to be engaging throughout on its own terms. It might help to rethink the idea of the twist itself. Hitchcock suggested a shift from the question, what will happen next, to the question, will it happen next? He wrote that, what happens next is a question concerned with the behaviour of characters in given circumstances, end quote. So our story ending moves from, a bomb is going to explode, to, what's going to happen to the characters when the bomb, that we already know about, explodes. Number 3. Relevance. As Hitchcock mentioned with regard to mystery and suspense, everything that is not essential to the story is wasted time. Now, not all of us want to write thrilling, plot-driven espionage stories, so Hitchcock's point here needs some interpretation. All stories are about development, from starting point A to finishing point B, whether the thing that's developing is a plot, a character, a situation, a location, or a combination of all these things. Therefore, anything that doesn't facilitate this development can be regarded as irrelevant. Personally, I tend to be quite strict about this when I'm editing, and I will highlight any actions, descriptions, dialogue, imagery, or even individual words that don't contribute to the story, often writing in the margin, "Does this come back later?" or "Is this important?" Then, of course, it's up to the writer to decide which darlings to kill. One way of building cohesion is through themes. As Stephen DeRosa writes, Hitchcock frequently tied his films together with a linking image or idea. The use of triangles in The Lodger, food in Frenzy, drinking in Notorious, and doubles in Shadow of a Doubt and Strangers on a Train are only a few. End quote. I tend to think that the image created in the mind of a reader comes from all of the writing, the dialogue, description, and action, and therefore I work very hard to bring a story together under a single theme when I'm redrafting. Number 4. Knowledge. One of Hitchcock's main tools for creating suspense, or rather for suspending a moment to create tension, was to create a difference between what the audience knows and what the characters know. He writes, "The most powerful means of gripping attention is suspense. It can be either the suspense inherent in a situation, or the suspense that has the audience asking, 'What will happen next?' It is indeed vital that they should ask themselves this question. Suspense is created by the process of giving the audience information that the character in the scene does not have." End quote. There are many great examples of this in Hitchcock's body of work. In The Birds, Tippi Hedren sits by a playground and smokes a cigarette. She is unaware of the birds, which we know to be dangerous, congregating on the climbing frame behind her.
Hitch's movies are always very suspenseful. And one of the ways that they are so successful is that Hitch lets the viewer in on more than the people in the script know. As an example, at the schoolhouse, when Melanie comes to take Kathy out of school, she sits down on the bench. And you see the one bird land on the jungle gym. And then it cuts back to Melanie Daniels sitting on the bench, nervous. And she starts smoking. I don't smoke anymore. And then you see 2 more birds.
And he said, now the audience is aware that birds are coming into the schoolyard, and the audience is also aware that we're getting closer to her. He said, when we get to finally a big head close shot, we'll hold on it until the audience can't stand it anymore.
Then you cut back again, and it's covered with birds, and the audience just gasps.
As writers, we don't necessarily have to create suspense all of the time, but giving different information to our characters and our readers will raise the stakes of the scenes in our stories. Number 5. Subtext. Closely related to all of the previous points is subtext. Subtext often gets derided, with people saying, "Oh, you're just reading things into it," or "It's not supposed to be symbolic." I'm not suggesting that all stories should be allegorical or euphemistic, nor that they should be complicated. But stories should be complex. This is a Robert McKee term. Complexity gives stories depth. Take, for example, Notorious. In this 1946 film, Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant become romantically involved when Bergman is recruited to assist the CIA in their investigation of a Nazi organization in Brazil. The subtext is simple, and certainly not hidden, as Hitchcock explained to filmmaker François Truffaut. The story of Notorious is the old conflict between love and duty. Cary Grant's job, and it's rather an ironic situation, is to push Ingrid Bergman into Claude Rains' bed. One can hardly blame him for seeming bitter throughout the story, whereas Claude Rains is a rather appealing figure, both because his confidence is being betrayed and because his love for Ingrid Bergman is probably deeper than Cary Grant's. All of these elements of psychological drama have been woven into the spy story.
It's nice out here. Let's not go out for dinner. Let's stay here.
have to eat.
Well, you can eat here. I'll cook.
I thought you didn't like to cook.
No, I don't like to cook. But I have a chicken in the icebox, and you're eating it.
What about all the washing up afterwards?
We'll eat it with our fingers.
So we need new plates?
Yes. One for you and one for me.
Do you mind if I had dinner with you tonight?
I'd be delighted.
So this famous scene where Bergman and Grant are kissing and nuzzling in their hotel room carries much more weight because we are aware of the conflict that underscores it. This is another example of how differences in what characters know can lead to drama and, of course, suspense. Subtext also relates to theme, and for Hitchcock the theme of Notorious is trust. As biographer Donald Spoto writes, Hitchcock and his screenwriter chose to locate this romance about trust within the package of an espionage thriller, for spies are, of course, characterized by their exploitation of trust." End quote. Subtext can seem daunting, but it needn't be, and it can add depth and complexity to a story. Number 6. Simultaneity. Hitchcock was very good at doing plot and character simultaneously, as filmmaker M. Night Shyamalan explains.
What I find so amazing in his movies is his ability to do plot and character at the same time. You know, because usually we have to do set up the character, okay, now someone got murdered, okay, now begins the plot part of it, but he does everything simultaneously. So Bruno's stalking Miriam, and that's the plot of it, okay, he's stalking her, and we all know what he's gonna do, so that's the plot. Oh my gosh, he's following her, but along the way, you get that she is gallivanting around with two guys, and she's just flirting with both of them, and my God, what kind of woman is she? She's married, she's taking two guys, and she doesn't care, she's out in public and teasing them both and flirting. Then on top of it, she turns around and sees a total stranger who's staring at her, and she's considering him as well. 3 guys at one moment. This lady is a tramp, you know? And they're setting all that up in this sequence of suspense. And along the way, you get to see his character, which is he's very smart, he's very cunning, you know? And they don't leave the fact that he's a psychopath. The kid walks by with a balloon. You get to have that laugh, but you go, man, who would do that? That's character. Along the way, you're still doing the plot, you know, which is he's chasing her and stalking her now. Then you realize he's flirting with her. That's how he's going to get close to her. And so that the characterizations of these two people are now becoming plot, which is just a beautiful thing. And then
this relates back to the relevance of each scene. A story that separates everything, that goes dialogue, description, plot, backstory, dialogue, description, plot, will quickly get tiring. If your scene is only doing one thing, then it probably needs to be combined with another or removed completely. It isn't always easy to do this, but it is a way of forcing yourself to think about what information is relevant and what is just filler. It is also a useful way of avoiding certain story writing tropes, such as the one where a story starts by detailing the main character's morning routine. Avoid that if you can. Number 7. MacGuffin.
There are a couple of words that people need to know to understand all about you and your films, and one of them is a MacGuffin. Can you explain what a MacGuffin is?
Yes, a MacGuffin you see in most films about spies. It is a thing that the spies are after. In the days of Rudyard Kipling, it would be the plans of the fort on the Khyber Pass. Mm-hmm. It would be the plans of an airplane engine and the plans of an atom bomb, anything you like. It's always called the thing that the characters on the screen worry about, but the audience don't care. Mm-hmm. And someone asks, what is a MacGuffin? And it's described in a scene in an English train going to Scotland, and one man says to the other opposite him, he said, what's that package above your head there? And the other man said, oh, that's a MacGuffin. He said, well, what is a MacGuffin? He said, well, it's an apparatus for trapping lions in the Scottish Highlands. The man said, but there are no lions in the Scottish Highlands. He said, then that's no MacGuffin.
Indeed. I define a MacGuffin as something that drives the plot, but that itself is unimportant. Almost all of the films previously mentioned have a clearly recognizable MacGuffin. In Rear Window, it is the salesman's wife. In The Birds, it is the birds. In Notorious, it is the uranium. It may be hard to imagine that something that drives the plot can be unimportant. It becomes clearer when you imagine exchanging it for something else. If Cary Grant in North by Northwest were running around with a briefcase, an antique, or an incriminating photograph, rather than a microfiche tape, which is his actual object of interest, the story would be unchanged. The point is that the thing that a story concerns needn't be the thing that the story is about. Creative writing books often mention an inciting incident that gets the plot started. I tend to tie these to the concept of MacGuffins. When I edit other people's work, I often cross out everything they've written before the inciting incident occurs or the MacGuffin is introduced. I will suggest that everything I've crossed out be worked into the story later, or just dispensed with. I tend to do this as most first drafts of stories are better thought of as notes, and many people start stories with description and backstory before getting things moving. The point is that modern readers expect stories to get going quickly and engage them throughout. This means that your plot has to start within a paragraph or two, preferably in the first sentence. Number 8. Support. Hitchcock used secondary characters to great effect. In The Wrong Man, Henry Fonda walks into a bank and is recognized, incorrectly, by the cashiers as the man who robbed them before. The scene plays out through the words and actions of the three women while Fonda waits in the background.
James, there's a man at the window. Peggy thinks that he's the one who held you up.
Says he wants to find out how much he can get on his wife's policy.
I don't dare look.
It is the same man.
What can we do?
Look at him. I'm not looking at him now. You look at him.
I don't think I can.
What am I going to tell him?
I'm not going near that window.
Just look at him.
What's he going to say? It's the same. I'm going to sit right here.
Talk to him about the policy. Tell him he'll probably get the loan. But his wife has to come in.
It is the key inciting incident in this film, and yet the main character is entirely removed from the action. It is another example of Hitchcock giving the audience more information than the character, and thus increasing the tension in a scene. You may intend your secondary characters for simple purposes, exposition, action, but remember, they can fit in numerous ways. They can provide differing perspectives, motivations, and reactions. They can react to your protagonist and help to define his or her character. It is sometimes worth considering whether secondary characters can be combined in order to tighten a story, or sometimes split into two to add complexity. Number 9. Action. Perhaps Hitchcock's most famous film is Psycho, and its most famous scene is the shower scene. In cinephile circles, it is well known that Hitchcock never showed Janet Leigh completely naked in the shower, nor did he show the knife penetrating her flesh during the attack. It was all achieved through editing.
But the scene itself was so brilliantly conceived because Mr. Hitchcock brought us to this point where from then on it became what we thought we saw, not what we saw. And he did that with his camera, with the editing, so that the audience finally just in this frenzy of chung, 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 each cut was like a stab of the knife. And eventually the audience said in their mind, this was a knife, that was a knife, and it was a cut. And the cut is even indicative, the word cut, because to them, each cut was a cut.
This refers back to the old adage of show don't tell, something that I frequently write in the margins. Telling would be to write, he stabbed her multiple times in the shower. Showing would be, perhaps, to turn each of those edits into short, choppy sentences to mimic the stabbing, and ending with the blood draining away down the plug hole and Marion's eyes reflecting the departing footsteps of her killer. The point is that even a brief action can be described fully and dramatically. It doesn't need to reflect the time it actually takes. Number 10. Visuals. Hitchcock is credited for being a visual director. Wherever possible, he will show something rather than having a character explain it. The beginning of Rear Window does this perfectly. We see everything we need to know about James Stewart's character in a single shot.
So you can see in all his films, he's striving to tell the story visually. So in Rear Window, I think you introduce Jimmy Stewart with, you see his broken leg, you see a broken camera, you see that he's a photographer, you see a magazine cover, etc. All done in one continuous shot, as I remember, where you are told, okay, this is what you're seeing, this is what it is, and the audience understands it as a result very quickly. That's, again, really good storytelling, and what Hitchcock was particularly good at.
Thinking visually can help our writing. It can help you to avoid telling things to your reader, as mentioned above. Bear in mind that people often talk about being able to picture what they read, or to imagine it, or see it in their minds. It seems to me that writing is as much a visual experience as any other art form, and it makes sense to help our readers to do this. The Hong Kong Writers' Circle podcast, Episode 8, Hitchcock Films, was produced by me, Simon Overton. For more information, including show notes and the podcast archive, please visit our website, hkwriterscircle.com. Excerpts were from Writing with Hitchcock by Stephen DeRosa, published by Faber and Faber, from Hitchcock on Hitchcock, edited by Sidney Gottlieb, published by University of California Press, Hitchcock by François Truffaut, published by Simon & Schuster, and from Notorious, The Life of Ingrid Bergman by Donald Spoto, published by Capo Press. Audio excerpts were from Rear Window Ethics, Remembering and Restoring a Hitchcock Classic, and All About the Birds, both by Universal Pictures. Strangers on a Train, An Appreciation by M. Night Shyamalan from Warner Brothers, or were sourced from YouTube. The music was by Quantum Jazz from the album End of the Line, used under the terms of a Creative Commons Attribution and Share-alike license. Additional credits. Music for this episode was Funeral March of a Marionette by Charles Gounod, arranged for classical guitar. Audio from The Wrong Man was sourced from YouTube. Thanks as always to Katrina Teh for the podcast artwork.